day. Oh, me takile, o yasa. Kiramae, ielo aste. I greeted you in a traditional native and indigenous greeting which says, hello, people of the earth. It is an honor to be here with you tonight. Behold, all of my relations. Now let me teach you a response back. And by the way, the word how is not like, how are you? H-O-W. It's spelled H-A-U. And it's a totally different thing when we say how. It's not a question. It's a greeting. It says, behold, I see you. So I say to you, how? Maka oyete, which means greetings, people of the earth. And your response will be, how? Tunkashila. And the word Tunkashila translates to grandfather. Many of my young relatives know me and speak of me as grandfather. So I will say to you, greetings, people of the earth, and you will reply back, greetings, grandfather, and that is how Tunkasha. So are we ready?
Yes. How?
Maka oyete?
How? Tunkasha?
Aho. I am Robert Black Eagle, an elder citizen of the southeastern Muskogee Nation, and I'm the principal elder of the 7th generation Native American Church. That tells you a little bit about who I am, but not very much about what I am. And what I am is a pretty good character actor, and maybe even a little better storyteller. And I've come here tonight to tell you a story in true character through the eyes of one, perhaps, who might have experienced life on this land many years ago, before all of this. And there's a long history, events and dates that I've come here to speak about people who inhabited this land and raised their children and raised their family and buried their dead on the land in which you have been traveling the last several days. Now that's an arduous and rather perilous task to tell a story of that great history, because I only have a few minutes and a few pages to tell a story of his story well over 1,000 years in its writing. And yet history is presented as just a matter of events and dates. It's just that, dates and events, not something you can easily relate to, and you quickly forget it. But when it's told as a story, as a living narrative, the story of the character takes on a whole new depth and dimension unique to its own telling. Now these words, mind you, are not easy words to speak. And they're not easy words to hear. And sometimes they're harshly heard and received, though that is not my intention. My intention in telling you the story is to tell you a story that will promote healing among all people, past and present and future generations. So take a moment, if you will, with me and close your eyes and imagine. Imagine, if you will, young relatives, the place where there is no concrete, no asphalt, no steel, no brick walls, no hum of commercial or mindless noise and machinery. Imagine. And look beyond these walls and enter for a moment another time and another place and another view of this land on which we stand. Hear the warm summer breeze through the hemlock and the cedar and the pine, and smell the sweet fragrance of mountain laurel and rhododendron and wild azalea. Ah, my young relatives, you are now walking on Cherokee land. Land upon which our ancestors have walked for generations, many winters, and long before the pale-faced strangers came. Now, open your eyes and see these lands upon which we now stand. For in and among these lands, our people inhabited over 50 tribal towns in an area that we now call North Georgia. Our women tended the crops. The women raised our children, grew the three sisters, the corn, the squash, and the beans. And our men hunted and made war when necessary to protect and defend our people and our villages. And they taught our young boys what it meant to be men in their rites of passage and on their vision quest. And since our first contact with the pale-faced strangers, we adapted and lived at peace and in harmony with our new neighbors as best we could. Not far from here, up around Skull Shoulders, there lived a village of Cherokee on one side of the river, and the pale-faced settlement on the other side. And our people built a rock across that river so that the two villages might more easily traverse and trade amongst themselves. The remnants of that Indian bridge remain to this day. And then something changed. And it changed very quickly. Look, yonder, or there, or there. Do you see them? We saw them coming. We watched them coming long before we knew why. Like the stars in the night sky, they came. Too many to number, and too many for anyone to count. Like a swarm of locusts ascending upon and devouring the summer green corn, they came. They came laden with shovels and picks and packs and pans and a look of fever, like a white man's war paint, covered their faces, and their eyes were glazed over with a fanatical illusion.
Go! We now go!
Soon our newspaper, the Cherokee Phoenix, broke the news about these strangers and why they were coming in such vast number. Of this invasion of unwanted and unwelcome intruders. Gold, da Halamaji Uskolski, had been discovered in these sacred mountains. Home, a place of provision and substance that our people longer can remember. Gold. Delona J. Uskolski, the yellow rock that makes the white man crazy. And the year was 1828. And although our people had stumbled upon this yellow rock hundreds of years earlier, we left her alone to sleep and rest in the bed of the sacred arms of the Mother Earth. One of the first white European prospectors to come to these lands recalls a scene of literally thousands of miners flocking to this area, seeking fame and personal fortune, literally in our front and back yards and in our gardens, in our land. Our homes, lands and homes our Cherokee people have inhabited thousands of years. The news got abroad and such excitement you ain't never seen. For within a few days, it seemed as if the whole world must have heard about it. For men come from every state. Some I ain't never even heard of. They come afoot, on horseback, and in wagons, acting more like crazy men than anything else. All the way from where Belaga connects with Knucklesville, men were panning out the branches and digging holes in the hillside. Benjamin Parks. 1 year later, the Georgia gold rush was in full encroachment. The white European settlers and miners and prospectors hungry for that yellow rock that made them crazy. And you know what? It did. The land that held this yellow rock deep within her breast was our land. The Cherokee land. This land that for over 1,000 years our ancestors had called their home. And in the blink of an eye, in the beat of a baby's heart, the landscape of our great Cherokee nation changed forever. The Indian problem had begun. How will and how can these two distinct nations of people live and exist in a civil and peaceful manner, and all on the same piece of land? Well, that would prove to be a difficult and challenging assignment. We were told that we must become civilized, that we must learn a new language, and send our children to the state schools, attend their churches, and accept their religion, and live as did they, and work as did they, and leave our heathen ways, our forbidden ceremonies, and even our language and our traditions and our culture behind, and follow the ways of our new pale-faced neighbors. We were told this is the only way you will survive. And so we did. We wanted, we desired to live in peace and carry on peaceful relations among all. And so we plowed the ground and planted crops, and we raised cattle and left our long houses and our lodges in exchange for 2-story boxes that they call homes. Ashamedly, many of us even owned slaves, because this was the way of our new white neighbors. We created our own alphabet. We formed our own newspaper. We adopted and adapted a constitutional government modeled after that of our new nation. We sent our children to the school and attended their churches and abandoned our spirituality and accepted their religion. We did everything that we could to appease and assimilate into American culture and demonstrate that our two nations could indeed live in harmony and peace together. Our head man, Major Ridge, and his son John, and his nephews Elias Boudinot and Stan Boite were doing everything right by the standards of the white government leaders, in hopes that we could prove that we were civilized enough to maintain our sovereignty of our land, and thus avoiding the fateful fate that had befallen our Creek neighbors not long before at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. We remembered the sad words of their chief, Red Eagle, when he surrendered to General Andrew Jackson. General Jackson, I am not afraid of you. I fear no man, For I am a Creek warrior. I come to beg you to send for the women and children of the war party who are now starving in the woods. Their fields and cribs have been destroyed, and they have been driven into the woods without a fuel plan. I hope that you will send out parties who will safely conduct themselves here in order that they may be fed. My people are all gone. I can now do no more than weep over the misfortunes of my nation. Chief Rebbe. As more and more settlers and strangers and star-struck seekers of fortune fell upon our land, naturally and understandably, tension was hot. And the boiling pot of intrusion often ran over, erupting into episodes of disagreements and violence and even death. Even our own people were divided and could not agree on what to do. But it soon became clear that our future as a nation was at risk of vanishing forever, much like the rapidly depleting gold in the hills of these sacred mountains. Our relative Elias Budnow, while lobbying on behalf of our people, spoke of our impending fate. There are, with regard to the Cherokee and other so-called civilized tribes, only two alternatives. We must become civilized and happy, or share the fate of many kindred nations and become extinct. Elias Budnow. And it was only a matter of time, and a short time it was, before the federal government stepped in to solve the Indian problem. And that is when we received the heartbreaking news from whom our people call the Great White Father. I have no motives, my friends, to deceive you. I seem sincerely desirous to promote your welfare. Listen to me. Listen to me, therefore, while I tell you that you cannot remain where you are now. Circumstances that cannot be controlled and which are beyond the reach of human laws render it impossible that you can flourish in the midst of a civilized community. You have but one remedy within your reach, and that is to remove to the west and join your countrymen who are already established there. And the sooner you do this, the sooner you will commence on your journey of improvement and prosperity. For as certain as the sun shines to guide you on your path, so it is certain that you cannot drive back the laws of Georgia from among you. Every year will increase your difficulties. Look at the condition of the Creeks. See the collisions which are taking place among them, and see how their young men are committing depredations upon the property of our white citizens and shedding their blood. This cannot and will not be allowed. Punishment will follow, and all who are engaged in these offenses must and will suffer. Andrew Jackson. The Great White Father sent many ambassadors to come to us, advising and admonishing us to give up our land and relocate to what they spoke of as Indian territory, west of the great Mississippi River. It's the only way. It's the only way out. It's the only way to survive. Leave our land. I recall the words of one of these ambassadors that the Great White Father sent. He told us, I beg you to say to them that their interest in happiness and peace and prosperity depends upon their removal beyond the jurisdiction of the laws of the state. These things have been oftentimes explained to them fully, and I forbear to repeat them, but request that you make known to them that Congress will enable them to move. But if they now shall refuse to accept the liberal terms offered, they only must be liable for whatever evils and difficulties may arise. I am happy that I have done my duty to my red children. And if any failure of my good intentions arise, it will be attributable to them and not to me. Andrew Jackson, via John Pitchton. Removal. Remove from our land, they said. Move west to Indian Territory. Remove, live, remain, and perish. Great division, as you might imagine, rose among our people. And two opposing parties emerged. The treaty party, led by our head man, Major Ridge, and his family, they lobbied for removal. Though small in number, they argued that we could not stop the land of gold and resource pale-faced strangers, and our only hope of surviving as a tribe and as a people was to immigrate west. The Ross Party, on the other hand, led by our principal chief, John Ross, led our tribal government and the majority of our people to resist, oppose removal, and remain on our lands. He tried hard to negotiate a treaty, a good treaty with the United States government. He failed. The harsh breath of the government fell upon us heavily. On May 30th, the year is now 1830. The great white father, Andrew Jackson, has made it clear. These untutored sons of the forest cannot exist in a state of independence anywhere in the vicinity of the white man. If they will persist in remaining where they are, they may as well begin to dig their graves and prepare to die. Andrew Jackson. With the stroke of the great father's feathered pen and ink, he signed it, the Indian Removal Act. And it became the new law of the land. An act, a law, which authorized the federal government and its agents to travel to the southeastern United States and, if necessary, forcefully remove the 5 civilized tribes, the Creeks, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and the Seminole. And suddenly, the world, our world, was turned upside down. Our world is uprooted and is in turmoil. The treaty party, representing only a minority of our people, illegally parlayed a removal treaty with the white father's ambassadors, while our own principal chief, John Ross, was in Washington, personally pleading our case before Congress. And in yet another stroke of a feather pen, this one in the hands of our people. It was signed. And this land, our land, was ceded and sold to the United States government, 7 million acres for $5 million. Mind you, all who signed it was aware of its illegitimacy. All were aware also that their signature was likely a sentence of death, as the selling and ceding of any Cherokee common ground was considered a crime, punishable by death. And they signed it anyway. The Treaty of New Wichita. Major Ridge, upon signing the treaty papers on December of 1835, hauntingly lamented, "I have just signed my death warrant." Later in Oklahoma, Cherokee justice was served. The Major Ridge, Elias Blumenau, were all killed on the same day, June 22nd of 1839, at the hands of their betrayed Cherokee brothers. And with that, the treaty party agreed to renewal with a deadline of 2 years. Following the voluntary removal of the treaty party, some 16,000 of our people remain behind in these mountains. But our hopes were crushed as we were determined to stay, as we celebrated green corn ceremonies in the summer of 1838. General Whitfield Scott was ordered to come round us up and force us to leave. Scott's soldiers arrested most of us that summer, some 15,000. We were marched to primitive stockades in North Carolina. There within the walls of an outlaw prison, our food was poor, water was limited, and filthy living conditions befell us. While prisoners, disease and illness swept through our people like the wildfires of summer's lightning. And over 3,000 of us perished within those prison walls. With no hope left, our chief, John Ross, finally gave up. He organized and led the removal of the remainder of our people himself. In October of 1838, we left and began a journey that took nearly 5 months. A journey our people spoke of as the Trail of Tears, or more literally, the trail upon which they cried. Most of us walked. As the winter weather worsened, many of us, our elders and our children, perished from the harsh conditions. Private John G. Burnett was a mounted infantryman among Scott's soldiers involved in the removal. On his 80th birthday, and as an old man, he wrote a haunting story of his personal experience on the Trail of Tears. I was sent as an interpreter into the Smoky Mountain country in May of 1838. And there I witnessed the execution of the most brutal order in the history of American warfare. I saw the helpless Cherokee arrested and dragged from their homes and driven at the bayonet point into the stockades. In the chill of the drizzling rain on an October morning, I saw them loaded like sheep and cattle in the 645 wagons, and they started towards the west. One can never forget the sadness of that morning. Their chief, John Ross, led them in prayer. And when the bugle sounded and the wagons started rolling, many of the children rose to their feet and waved their little hands goodbye to their mountain homes, knowing they're leaving them forever. Many of those helpless people did not have blankets, and many of them have been driven from their home barefooted. And on the morning of November 17th, we encountered a terrible snow and sleet storm with freezing temperatures. And from that day until we reached the end of that fateful journey on March 26, 1839, the sufferings of the Cherokee were awful, and the trail of exiles was indeed the trail of death. John G. Burnett. It is estimated that some 4,000 to 6,000 of our people perished on that fateful journey. No one will ever know exactly how many. One loss was the death of the wife of our own head woman, Chief Ross's wife. And with that, it was over. Over the next several winters, westward expansion would continue exponentially as gold would be discovered yet again in California and later in the sacred Black Hills of the great Sioux Nation. Wars, most notably the Red Cloud Wars of the great Sioux Nation, broke out, and treaties were brokered and treaties were broken. Battles were rampant from the likes of the 7th Cavalry among many, and again, most notably, the massacre at Wounded Knee on December 29th of 1890, in which some 450 Lakota were killed. That was the final arrow that broke the back and the heart of a great nation of indigenous people all across this continent that we call Turtle Island. Sioux Chief Red Cloud, witnessing the end of his people's legacy with lament, they made us many promises, more than I can remember, but they kept but one. They promised to take our land, and they took it. Black Elk, a holy man among the Sioux Nation, as a young boy, witnessed the carnage at Wounded Knee. Later in his life, as an old man, he reflected with lament on that day. I did not know then how much was ended and how much was lost. When I look back now from this high hill of my old age, I can still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered among the crooked gulches, plain as I saw them, with eyes still young. And I see that something else died there and was buried in the blizzard. The people's dream died there, and it was a beautiful dream. And I, to whom such a great vision was given in my youth, you see me now, a pitiful old man who has done nothing for the nation's hoop is broken and scattered. And there is no longer unity or harmony, and the center and the sacred tree of life is dead. Black Elk. As sad as is the story to tell and hear, there is hope. There is good news. The story is not yet over. For the spirit of the Indian lives on, and it is as alive today as it was for generations before this day. The story lives on. It lives on in each and every one of you who tonight know yourselves as Cherokee or Creeks or Shawnee. It lives on. 4 days before he was assassinated, the great Sioux warrior Crazy Horse was in council with Sitting Bull. The day was September 1st of 1877. On that day, Crazy Horse was given a great vision, a vision that has become known as the seventh generation prophecy. In his vision, Crazy Horse saw, upon suffering beyond suffering, the red nation shall rise again. And it will be a blessing to a sick and a broken world. A world filled with broken promises, of selfishness and separations and disillusionment. A world longing for the light again. He said, I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one again. In that day, there will be those among our people who will carry knowledge and understanding and of harmony and unity among all living things. And the young ones will come to those of my people and ask for this wisdom. He finished by saying, I salute the light that is in your eyes, where the whole universe dwells. For when you are at that place within you, and I am at that place within me, then we shall be as one. Hear me now, and hear me well, my young relatives, for that day is this day. And you, my young relatives, are the emergence of that 7th generation. The world which Crazy Horse foresaw, a world of selfishness, a world of separations, a world of disillusionment, a world longing for the light again, is this world. This world in which we live today. And at no time in our history has that been more poignantly true than it is this day. You young relatives, you who are coming from the 4 corners of the earth, the red and the yellow and the black and the white, you will be that generation that will restore hope and healing among all people, and thus reconciling unity of the sacred circle of life, in which time the whole earth will become one again. This is not theory. It is not mine or someone else's opinion. It's a matter of simple math. You are that seventh generation that Crazy Horse foresaw, a generation that will heal the brokenness and separations that have plagued our collective people and our land for generations. You will be that generation that will remove the blinders of racial and religious prejudice. You will be that generation that restores healing not only to and among the people, but you will be the generation that restores balance and healing of the land, this planet, our sacred mother, and the trail of life that we all share together as one. This is your calling. This is your destiny. And today's brief lesson in history is a story that will propel you and your generation into action. So learn from the story and learn from the past. And stand up and move forward from this place today, tonight, in a good way, seeking the highest and absolute best good for all people and all parties in this planet that we all call our home. Share the story with you. It's my opinion and my thought that during the week you have a lot of entertainment, and at least for a few minutes we can come together in a good way and receive some inspiration. And I hope that's what you take with you tonight. I'm deeply honored tonight to have my brother in our gathering. It's a real treat for me. My brother John, two of my grandchildren from our seventh generation church are here with us tonight, Zach and Kaya. And hopefully if you have enjoyed our program, let your counselors and your folks, your adult folks know, and maybe they'll invite me back next year and we'll gather again. Until then, I wish you well, my young relatives, and go and do the thing that I've encouraged you to do. I hope.